Alright guys, fans might kick in this video. We're already full on this laptop. I have to apologise for that. So, following on from where we left off, Genesis 4, we read how Adam knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, from the Lord. So this man, according to scripture, is from the Lord. There's no Satan's son, Lucifer's son, sex with Satan. She ate the fruit containing the seed of the tree because she was beguiled by the serpent. And we're learning how the two trees were under the two morning stars, symbolic of their trees, the tree of life, the tree of knowledge, that I was and that I am. And the seed was the spirit of the son of perdition, Baal, who went into the tree, and he is the seed of the serpent, who is the enmity between the seed of the woman, Eve. I have begotten a man from the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. Okay? And she again bore his brother Abel. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground, a farmer. And in the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So Cain sought the Lord, and brought an offering to the Lord. And Abel, he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And the Lord had respect unto Abel, and to his offering. But unto Cain and his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou dost well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel his brother. And it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother, and slew him. And the Lord, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, said unto Cain, Quin, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now thou art cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. Who are all these people, guys? Who shall slay him? And the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said unto him, Therefore, whoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begat Mahuel, and Mahuel begat Methusael. And Methuselah begat Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of the one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. And Ada bore Shubal, and he was the father of such that dwell in tents, and of such have cattle. And his brother's name was Hubal, and he was the father of all, such as the handler of the harp and the organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Ada and Zillah, Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech. For I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 70-fold. And 7-fold, sorry guys. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God, said she, hath appointed me with another seed, instead of Abel, who Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also, there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. Okay, guys. So Atlantis, 3 layers of symbology. The first layer, Atlantis, is the whole post-Eden fall world. The whole world. Okay, guys? And we'll talk about the second layer, the city of Atlantis. And hopefully we will unfold the third layer of what Atlantis is. I believe Atlantis, the world, the first layer, is the Pangea map. And the Pangea map is the post-Eden fall, pre-flood, antediluvian world. We take a look at this, very interesting. We covered it in the last video about the Younger Dryas. And we took a little look at this top part. I believe over here in the Philippines is where Adam and Eve, after their eviction at the beginning of this period, the period of Atlantis, the antediluvian world, they found themselves somewhere here in the Philippines. And it's really, really interesting, guys, to notice that the next plot of land is the area we call Australia, which is connected to half of China, Tibet, India, and this strange, secretive place that we now call Antarctica. This, in itself, guys, I find very, very interesting. And of course, if what I'm telling you is correct, in this world was full of the pre-garden sons of Adam and the female, the Hands, the Neanderthals. After the fall of the garden, the whole world was already populated with these Neanderthals, and Adam and Eve found themselves in what we call the Philippines. And Adam knew Eve, his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the Lord. This man is the Asclepius, the hand of Adam and the rib of Eve combined. Sorry, the Codicius. Sorry, guys. Born with the seed of the serpent, the fruit. Asclepius, who was born hand and rib, already born possessed by the spirit of the son of perdition, Baal, who was passed through the fire, cursed, and became the scapegoat, the Baphomet. She again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So we see Adam and his wife Eve and their 2 sons. Just take a look at some Philippine artifacts, guys. We find this corded beakerware pottery, this clay cast pottery. We find the Ouroboros on the clay pottery. And we find vases with spikes and all sorts of other stuff that you can check out, guys. In the Philippines, we find idols of the squatting man. Okay, guys, these are Philippine artifacts. The squatting man. It's all the same stuff. In the Philippines, we find the 2-headed throne, which has heads of a duck, at least some sort of bird. I'm certain that this is a duck. And as I've told you guys before about the duck, the 2-headed throne, well, we find these 2-headed thrones in the Philippine artifacts. We also find these masks, this guy with these big ears and the black and red face. He's a red man, red face, the miry clay, but it's tainted with this black, these black dots making tiger stripes, tiger style. We of course find them plain. The man, the red man with the big ears. We also find these jars, which are like, to me, canopic jars. This guy, this bald head, and lots of the dots, which I believe are symbolic of the legion in his head. We find this exquisite jade, which we'll hopefully come back to and talk about in another video, guys. And we find these strange artifacts. This one, on the back of it, has the constellation of the Big Dipper, which is part of Ursa Major, the Great Bear. So I put it to you guys that Adam and Eve settled in Australia, and Cain went one way on his path. His land would be Antarctica on the Pangea map, and Abel went south through India. And I believe Abel settled in Egypt, where Cain would soon follow. And they gave an offering to the Lord, to the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and Abel's offering was accepted, but Cain's was not. So Cain slew his brother Abel. This I strongly believe. The grotto in the Great Pyramid, before there was any pyramid, is the hole in the ground where Abel was buried. Okay, guys? Just like we see across the world in all the paleo burials, the fetal burial position, these pits are just exactly the same as the grotto in the Great Pyramid, and it's the same sort of burial position as we find at Karahan Tepe, which I've covered before. I believe that Lucifer had the Neanderthals doing this ritual at Karahan Tepe with the belief to bring the Messiah, but he knew that what he was doing in the garden, that would create Cain. I've covered the grotto, the subterranean chamber, guys. This video is going to be a little choppy and a little messy. It's hard to explain all of this stuff, guys, and tie it all together. I'll try and do my best, but I've just put this in here just to jog your memory about what we see in the subterranean chamber. Some of you might be familiar with Ginger, the oldest, claimed to be the oldest burial in the world. We see Ginger with these red pots that are tipped by black, red vessels with black on them. We find these red vessels all over Egypt with the black. The red vessel with the black. Okay, guys? We also find these dark clay pottery pots, I suppose. And the clay head. The plastered skull. We've talked about this before, guys. Cain said unto the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. And I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that every one that findeth me shall slay me. And the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh said unto him, Therefore, whoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh set a mark upon Cain, lest any man finding him should kill him. It's becoming blatantly obvious that the people that Cain were afraid of were the B'nai Elohim, the Hands, the Neanderthals, the sons of the Elohim, created by the two morning stars before any garden, the sons and daughters of the male and female, who as instructed populated the whole earth. These hunter-gatherer hands, the B'nai Elohim. I put it to you guys that this is who Cain was afraid of. So the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh marked the red man. This is a glyph. The ball, and X marks the spot. It is a glyph for city, because you are a strong city. This is the third layer of Atlantis. You are Atlantis. You are a strong city. And the mark of the red man is a melanocyte. Now don't get this twisted. This is not a racial thing. There is only one race, the human race. Amongst it there are tribes and nations, but we are one race. This melanocyte makes no difference to who you are. Cain, the red man, was marked. The mark of Cain, the X marks the spot, the melanocyte. Now, a red man with an overactive melanocyte problem would start to look something akin to Darth Maul. Tiger style. Okay, guys? And this guy, of course, wandered around, coming across these hunter-gathering hands, the sons and daughters of the female, the B'nai Elohim. And he wandered out of Egypt. And on his wanderings, I believe, he entered Turkey, where he was hailed by the hands as the Messiah. And he taught them infrastructure. He colonized them guys. He colonized the hunter-gatherers. He taught them how to build homes, because he had all the knowledge of the tree of knowledge from the spirits of the son of perdition, the Asclepius, that was in him. He taught them agriculture. He colonized the hands, okay, guys? He taught them spirituality. shamanism, religion. As we've done in the history series, which I intend to continue, we start to be able to follow the artifacts left behind. And we see that if Asclepius is truly the spirit inserted into Cain the Cordicius, this is the two heads in one, the meaning of it. Okay, guys? And we can follow the plastered skulls from the Mahdi culture, the pre-pyramid Giza Plateau culture. We can start to follow this across the world and Cain's journey back to the Tepes in Sanliurfa, Turkey, where he was hailed as the Messiah, because the events in the garden created this first. There's 8 guys. The 8th is one of 7, and Cain is number 1. And when he came across these Neanders, these hands, he was hailed as the Messiah. What they were doing at the Tepes, they believed that they had made the Messiah, and the Messiah had arrived. This is what I believe they was doing here, guys. I'm not saying it caused any type of Messiah or even created Cain. I'm saying that Lucifer was singing into the ears of the hands, and they believed him. They believed if they did this stuff, the Messiah would be born, and their Messiah, the first anti-Messiah, through the events of the garden, truly did come. He taught them how to build houses of what we find. This is a reconstruction, guys, of what we find in the artifacts, the archaeological records. These straw and mud square houses. And as this grew, this is where we find places like Catalhoyuk, where we see the headless man, the spotted boar, the swine. We see the dots entering the man, the red man, and his head being full of these dots. We find the pole flanked by the lions. We see all this stuff, guys, at Catalhoyuk, the origins of the Catholics. I'm going to fly through this, guys, because I've covered it before. At Catalhoyuk, we found the seal, the handprint with the mark, or this circular thing in his hand. We found this amulet, the Nat crystal, flint crystal blade. We find a really, for the time, advanced plastered skull. We find the Fatimama sat on the twin-headed lion throne. And all this other stuff, guys. At Catalhoyuk we find twin-headed idols, 1 body and 2 heads. We find chariots showing that right back in the Neolithic, what they call it, the shift from the Paleo to the Neolithic, they had wheels. And we see this birdman with the swastikas on his chest in a chariot, all from Catalhoyuk. We can follow for sure, guys, the plastered skulls from the Mahdi culture all the way up to Catalhoyuk. This amulet, guys, it certainly is the spotted orb, the circumpunct in the crescent with the 3. The caduceus with the 3rd insert, the Asclepius, the fleur-de-lis. This is a common marking that we can see on vessels found all over the world, guys. So Cain moved on, being a nomad and a wanderer. He moved on. And if the Pangaea map is correct, the only logical path is down this area here, up Italy and into France. France being the centre of the world. France, Spain, Germany, and the Isles. Okay, guys? And this would be the centre, the location, the centre of Atlantis, the world, where we would most likely find Atlantis, the city, which would become the home, the abode of the gods, Olympus. In the Neolithic record, we find the axes made out of polished stone. In France, we find this very, very interesting squatting man in the paleo burial position. Because I put it to you guys that the squatting man, it's the man from Karahan, and it's talking, it's showing, its meaning is about the pit where the man from Karahan was buried, the squatting man. And we find these artifacts. I'm not going to break all this down, guys. We're just going to show these artifacts in France. Of course, there's all the Karnak stones. I'm going to explain this, I hope, in the final part of Atlantis. In this journey, in this story, we're still in the Neolithic, the primitive age. But towards the end of Atlantis, when they were building megaliths, that's what all these stones are, guys. I believe they are polygonal megalithic blocks, ruins. In Karnak, in France, at the centre of the antediluvian world. So in this story, we're not quite at the megalithic stage, but at Karnak we find all these stones, which I believe the Phoenicians, the sea people, the masons of the day, they knew what they were looking for, and for some reason they accumulated all these blocks and stones because they knew there were remnants of megalithic structures. And that's what the stones are at the stone circles and the henges that we find across the world, guys. They knew what they were, they knew what they were looking for. There's lots and lots of interesting megaliths in France. We find the polished axe heads and stuff at France, and we also find these jade discs. Cognac, of course, the saying goes, all cognac is brandy, but all brandy is not cognac. Cognac is made from a certain grape. Okay, guys? The wine, the soul of wine, and the eau de vie, meaning the water of life. It's aged for at least 2 years. Cognac, the eau de vie, and the water of life. The grapes, the wine. Okay, guys? And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God, said she, hath appointed me another seed, instead of Abel, who Cain slew. Now I believe Seth set off on his journey, and he went to Egypt, where his brother was slain, and settled there. Seth. Cain being the nomad wanderer at this time, looking like Darth Maul, tiger style, with his overactive melanocyte mark, continued through Germany and Ukraine. And you can take a look closely at this map on your own, guys, and have a look at all this stuff. His journey, which would eventually, as the snow was receding from the fall of Eden, which they're calling the Younger Dryas, it would leave this pathway through to China, through Germany, Harksheim. We've talked about this, guys. Sorry, guys. We've talked about this, how it resembles what we find in the subterranean chamber of the Great Pyramid, amongst other places. Rivers of blood, sacrifice, cannibalism, fecal burials, and so much more. find these ivory and bone artifacts of the Venus and these bracelets, which if you look closely have the swastika on them. They say this is the earliest representation of the swastika known to man, on the belly of a bird, an ivory bird with a swastika on it. Sorry about this jumping, guys. I had a feeling that this video would be very, very choppy and hard to follow. We also find these pots in this era, in this culture. Now this is very interesting to me. They call it a self-portrait of a Cro-Magnon man. Cro-Magnon being the sons and daughters of Eve, the antediluvian race, sons and daughters of Cain, which we could be looking at right here. An idol of the man himself, the world king nomad, Quinn. Just a thought. Is this the face of Quinn? And of course in the Vinca culture, we've seen the black and red man sat. I don't know why it's doing this, guys, I'm sorry. We see the black and red man sat on the twin-headed lion throne that we've already seen in the Philippines. In other videos, we've seen this all over the world, guys. The black and red striped man, the Vinca culture. It's Darth Maul, guys. It's the red man with an overactive melanocyte problem. The marked city. The mark of Cain. Okay, guys? The king of the world. On the double-headed throne. All this stuff is universal and global at this time. Just like the two heads in one body, and follow these. We find them in the Vinca culture. I'm not going to go through it all again, guys. Check out the history video series, the history playlist. It's quite interesting. This alien-like looking bird man, just like the offering, very, very similar to the offering in the Wuhan Games opening ceremony that they passed through the fire, if you remember. And the bull becomes significant in the Vinca culture. The man and the bull. The Vinca culture, as I've said before, guys, we can find this duck in the duck chariot with the circumpunct. Just screams to me as a very, very, very similar, if not the same thing that we find at Catalhoyuk. And I've explained how I believe that this is the home of the spirit of Vlad, the Walachi, the possessing spirit. And by this time, Cain was building an army of hands following him. In the Vinca artifacts, we find little model armies carrying standards. We find this exact same thing in China. The duck chariot that we find at Catalhoyuk, in the Vinca culture, and in China. And in China, we find the twin-headed animal throne. We also find lots of these lions that face each other, just like we've seen at Catalhoyuk. Just like the Vinca man, the Vinca animal throne, what the red and black man sits upon. Okay, guys? The master of animals, because he controls the unclean animals. He controls the spirits that are in them. They do his bidding because he holds the spirit of the son of perdition, the Asclepius. I hope this is making sense, guys. This is the best I've got. This is all I've got. This is the best I can do. I'm trying, guys. I taught them agriculture. This plow and this hook, this tilling of the ground. We find these are from China. Okay, guys? He colonized the whole world. We find the exact same polished stone axe heads. And amongst the Red Mountain jade, we find these two very interesting artifacts, which I've covered before. This dog-like man, this man with a dog coming out of his head. And we find this dragon Ouroboros with the man sat inside, just like we see at Karahan Tepe. Only we've gone from stone to jade. And I'm confident, guys, that this Ouroboros with this man sat in it is the Ouroboros and the burial pit from Karahan. This is memories in China, the Red Mountain culture of Karahan Tepe. We find jade artifacts in China with striking similarities to the Philippine artifacts. We'll talk about what this is another time. It's basically Baal, okay, guys? And we find these jade rings, these circumpunks, just like we find in France. We find them in China. Now on some of these bar discs are etchings, markings. And I find this one highly interesting. Can you see this mark, guys? This bird as a spirit, Horus, is sat on the temple, bearing this mark. The mark we found at Göbekli Tepe, and the Warrior Medicine Man, the Warrior Medicine Man, is on the jade disc. It's what Justin Welby had on his chest at the Queen's funeral. We've talked about these, what they call kongs, the squared circle. We've broke this down, guys, so I'm not going to get too deep into this. Squaring the circle. You are Atlantis. You are a strong city. You are the circle they want to square. We can compare the findings in the artifact record of China pottery to the markings on the Vinci pottery. We find this Hongshan jade piece, which is strikingly familiar to the Vinci pottery. It's all the same stuff, guys, because there is only one story that is true, and that is found in Scripture. At this time, they started to progress, made the furnace. They added silica to the clay to make ceramics. We've talked about all of this, guys. I'm not going to get into this because I want to stay on track, okay? But just take a minute and absorb what's going on. The Hongshan platform, the central burial in China. The reason I've included this is because they found this face, this pot face. I'll come back to this very soon. Remember this face, guys. Some of you might already know this. Some of you might be thinking of other images where you might have seen this face. There's loads of these pots in China, guys, of the squatting man. And it shows this vase, this vessel. This is the man. The man is the vase, the container. You are the container. We see the red and black stripe around his neck. I found this piece very interesting because it's a fish new, dagon. We see the Ouroboros dragon on the fish. We see the two sticks with, this is a crescent, but sometimes, usually it's an orb with a dot, the circumpunct. We see this fish being guided by strikingly resembling those strange Philippine artifacts behind this Ouroboros. And this symbol, which I believe it's got the best crown, it's Tlaloc. We'll call this Tlaloc, but it is Baal. We find these faces where in the forehead, where you have the spot, the pineal, the bindi spot, there's another face in there. He is Viracocha. He is the sun god. He is in the pineal of Cain. The Asclepius is in the Caduceus, the triple X. And we find this face, lots of representations of this demonic, vampiric, clown-like face that is certainly Tlaloc, because it is Baal, the spirit of the son of perdition. He is the circumpunct in the boar, the swine, the spotted boar. Well, we find this, as I've shown, this beaker in China, the spotted boar that we found at Catalhoyuk, that goes right back to Göbekli Tepe, where we see the serpent skin with the bird serpent. It's a spotted boar. And we see this cup in China, where the dotted hands are holding the temple, like a puppet master, because you are the temple. We find the squatting man in China, and we find this guy on his knees, with his arms tied behind his back. The sacrifice becomes the squatting man. We also find this face, guys, right here over on the right, which we can't not compare to the Philippine heads, or even the ones from France. The man with the big ears. What big ears you have. And this is where we find the serpent with the head, the human head, with this hat. Remember this hat? With the two feathers like the chakmul. And I believe that this is the worm that does not die, the cursed soul, the literal cursed soul of the son of perdition who was passed through the fire, the scapegoat. This is what's emerging out into the phallic shrine at Karahan Tepe. He's the cursed soul, the scapegoat, the worm that does not die who was passed through the fire. He's the Tengu. We followed this from Turkey to China in other videos, guys. Well, now we're looking at the actual path of the journey. We compare the artifacts, the skulls with the holes from Göbekli Tepe, and we find the same things at China. At China we find Hemdu, which is comparable to Harksheim, and the subterranean chamber at Giza, and loads of other places, guys. The sacrificial pits. Hemdu, China, where they found the villagers, because he was a colonizer. Cain was the first colonizer of the first men, the Hans, the Neanderthals, and he was their messiah. We compare the burial pits at Hemdu to the Mahdi burial pits on the Pyramid, Giza Plateau, and the grotto in the Great Pyramid. At Hemdu, we start to see a shift from the fetal burial position to the use of a coffin or sarcophagus with a man laid straight in his container. At Hemdu is where we see the shift. It's interesting to note, guys, that this burial is buried with his pots, just like we find, just like Ginger was buried with his pots. In the pre-pyramid Mahdi culture at Giza, we can see the progress at Hemdu, the same sort of idea, but progressing into a sarcophagus or coffin. We can see the flow of change that the man called Cain brought. The Tepe sacrifice site, the Mahdi sacrifice site with 2 holes for the 2 pillars. Hemdu sacrifice site, the subterranean chamber underneath the pyramid. Harksheim sacrifice site. It is all the same stuff, okay, guys? So our nomad, we follow his travels. As the ice is receding, there's only one path becoming clear. And it's up here through Japan, into Canada, Alaska, to Canada, and into the United States. In Japan, the Jomon culture, we find more remains of the same stuff. The wooden structures, the square houses, and a pyramidal central meeting place. In the Jomon culture, it's all the same stuff, guys. I've gone through it all before. Even the masks. We can compare the Jomon masks to the masks we've just looked at and follow the trail. And the idols, guys. Even the hole, the spot. All of it, guys. It's all the same stuff. This is a Jomon artifact. This Jomon artifact has the Kundalini rising, the Asclepius rising. He is the Caduceus. He is the genetic match host. He is Cain. He is the Caduceus, the hand and rib, possessed by the spirit of Baal. The worm that does not die, passed through the fire, cursed, the son of perdition, the scapegoat, Baphomet. Shiva, send Shiva up your jet pillar, shivers up your spine. This is what raising this Kundalini is, guys, okay? And just like with everything else, we find this in the tepes. This latest find from Karahan Tepe. We find it in the Jomon artifact record. Something interesting that I found in this Japanese stuff is this triangular head. They call the goddess. The slice of pizza. Okay, guys, the pizza slice. The Nefertiti shaped head. This is a Japanese Neolithic artifact of the goddess. And we find this. Ahriman, Baal, whatever you want to call him. It is all the same stuff. And he is the phantom of this opera. The Jomon is where they first started taking records. Because from then till now, it's always been about the same goal for the big spiritual supernatural entities, the principalities, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Well, to them, this has always been the plan. Tagging, recording, the birth certificates, the numbers, all of it. It's all the same stuff. Well, We start to see this starting in the Jomon records with hands and footprints of newborns. Cain went on through the Americas, settled, colonizing more Neanderthals, more hands, building these cities and leaving behind structure, civilization, agriculture, religion, colonizing the Neanderthals and building his small army, advancing on in this period to the mud hut square structures, squaring the circle. Okay, guys? And from here, it seems he set back off on his return to the place of the murder where his brother Seth was settling now in Egypt. Okay, guys? Now, I've made one grave error in this series already. I've only just got this far in my understanding. I claimed Khufu is Zufu, and that Zufu was Cain. I'll tell you now, guys, he's not Cain. He's Tubal Cain, Buddha. And I will show this and more in parts 4 and 5 of Atlantis. I'm sorry that this was a little higgledy-piggledy, guys. There's not much to piece this together apart from discernment that I don't deserve from the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh himself and the artifacts that we find. Part 4 will be an eye-opener, guys. I've got it laid out. It's much better than this. It's Cain returning to Egypt, where the sons of Seth dwell. So till then, may Yeshua bless you all.